You're listening to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast. We are continuing our October horror series this week. I am joined once again, as always, by Anna and Paul. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic.
I'm really well, feeling particularly good about this episode.
Are you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Way to prime the audience, Rick.
Just before we get to the game on hand, which this week will be The Long Reach, before we get to that, I am going to offer an apology because...
Thank you.
You're
and
welcome.
You know what? I forgive you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't even need to go on then as to what I'm apologizing for. But I'm going to anyways. See, a few months ago, quite a while ago, I don't know, I was talking to one of you guys or both, and we were talking about Sierra games and their hint books, and saying that the games were designed to be very difficult to solve with lots of dead ends, because they were making a killing off of selling hint books, and so they kind of wanted to encourage that. I thought at that time that was confirmed fact. I thought that was established. It had been presented to me as fact, and therefore I recited what I was convinced was the truth. As it turns out, it has been pointed out in the Sierra Adventure by Sean Mills. Al Lowe pointed out that was not the case, and that was also confirmed by Ken Williams, I believe in some post in one of the Facebook groups. He clarified as well and confirmed Al's story that they never actually deliberately tried to put in any dead ends. There were just a few that got past them. So I'm offering an apology for speaking out of turn. I assure you it was... I did not even mean it maliciously. I just thought I was saying things that were true, because that's what I thought they were at the time. But it turns out that I was incorrect, and so I have to take all that back.
Well, I'd like to read that as you're apologizing directly to the game Gold Rush, because that was the episode we were in. I believe the timestamp was 23 minutes and 14 seconds.
No, 23 minutes. 23 minutes was how long I played that game before I got bored.
I'm sure you put much more time into this game, right, Rick?
Yes. I did put an hour into this game, or actually no, sorry. I put like 2 hours, which I think is probably about 45 to 50 minutes of game time if you were to watch somebody who knew how to play it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, me being me, it takes like 2 or 3 hours just to like do simple tasks, and progress like whatever that was, like an eighth of the game. It was a pretty short game. I just could not do it because I guess another apology's in order here. Disclaimer. A while back, I made a post on Instagram, I think, where I said like I listed off the core values of the show, and I said that I want the show to be focused on the celebration of the classics and classic-inspired indie games or modern adventures and such like that. And what I mean by that is that I go into these things wanting to be able to say good things. I do not do the thing where I look for mean things to say because it's funny, because it gets more clicks and shares. But that doesn't mean I'm going to enjoy every game that we talk about here. I've previously not enjoyed, what was it called? Enclosure. And I have pointed out several flaws that prevented me from enjoying Kathy Rain. And The Long Reach, unfortunately, I appreciate so much all of the effort that went into it. I see how much work went in, and they did well pulling off what they set to achieve. it just didn't turn out to be the game for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's nobody's fault except for just my personal tastes.
Well, now, is it the style of the game? I mean, it is a debut game. Do you think it's because they're new at making games, or do you think it's just because a game like this is just not something you'd like no matter what?
Well, you see, before I get into my things, I would really, because I know you and Paul liked this game. Paul, quite considerably. You, I don't know exactly the extent to which you enjoyed it. But I want to hear, before I give my input, I want to hear you guys talk it up without influence, because apparently I can intimidate people into changing their opinions. And I just want to hear your reactions first.
So I really appreciate that you can use the bathroom. Every time I play a game, that's something that's important to check. I checked, you could. I thought that was pretty cool. So that's definitely a point in its general direction from me.
So that is the reason why you like this game. Okay, so now I know why it's popular.
I liked that you could check the email and how the emails kind of told a little backstory about what was going on. So I thought that was pretty fun.
It seems like every game since Crusader does that, though. I don't think that's special.
No, well, not every game I've played. I have such a limited amount of newer games.
Okay,
that
fine.
I've played.
It's not in Quest for Glory.
No, just signing the journal. But yeah, I didn't even know you could die or that people could chase you. So, I'm just like wandering around, and the next thing I know, I got bludgeoned in the head I got bludgeoned in the head by a guy with a crowbar. So I'm like, okay, yeah, you can die. And then I'm like, oh, and you can run. So that was something I hadn't realized.
This ain't no LucasArts game.
Yeah. First adventure game I ever played with 2 speeds.
And then you're trying to get the hang of the story, and it's like, oh, Shelley won't win no matter how many Allens she sends. And I'm like, okay, that is pretty weird, because you had to get the grasp of what all they were talking about, which wasn't entirely clear for a good portion of it. It was a nice game. I don't want to jump to what I thought about later on in the game until I hear what you have to say a little bit, Paul.
So did you? We never do like ratings on this show, but give me a rough idea of like where does it fall with you? Like a C plus, B minus. What did you think of it?
Well, if I'm going to rate it on a 1 to 10 scale, being that 5 is entirely average, I would probably place this one at a solid 6.2.
0.2, okay.
Yeah, 6.2. It's a little bit better. I mean, it's a first try, and I thought the game was fun. The ending was kind of abrupt for me. I was left feeling that way a little bit. But.
So when you say you like the game, you rate it just marginally higher than mediocre?
No, I mean, 5 is average. So
5 is mediocre.
In my scale, how I laid it out, 5 is average, though. So I thought it's above average by a whole point, 0.2. That's, better than an average game on my scale.
Okay, if you want to establish it that way, that is fine. I just have issues with people saying 5 is average, because that's not what average means.
This is why we don't do ratings.
Yeah. I like the 5 is average because it makes sense to me when I look at the scale that way.
5 is the middle point. That makes it mediocre.
Too many times have I sat back and watched ratings just tear this family apart.
Well, if you want to put it that way on your rating system, I would maybe give it a 7.
Okay,
on
there
yours.
you go. I can calibrate to that. That's
yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah, that's fine. I said it was a well-written game. There was a couple of times where the solution wasn't entirely clear to me, which is fair. I mean, I've played a lot of other games too. I have less patience than I used to. So I'm like, if I have to struggle on this for 15 or 20 minutes and I'm not progressing, I'm going to look up what's going on. And there was a few challenges, like the one where you had to change the color of the lights and go back that I got a little bit hung up on. But I think there was probably only about 4 or 5 times that I had to look something up to make it all the way through this very short game, which I think 5 hours, maybe 6 if you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's something like that. Like if you watch a walkthrough of somebody just doing it, it's like an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That makes me feel...
That was not
stupid.
what happened with me. I was in between 5 and 6 pretty solidly. And if I hadn't looked up any clues, I would have been 7.5.
Yeah, because
probably.
a straight walkthrough is like the person already knows exactly what to do and just does it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point. Fair point. I just looked on my Steam, which counted it for me. I was 6 hours, 6.2 or whatever. So, and I don't think I used a walkthrough either. I think because I played it right when it came out, so there probably wasn't one. And that's strategic too. It's the same thing with Thimbleweed. I'm like, I'm going to play it as soon as it comes out, so I can't look up a walkthrough because I'm weak. I'm a weak individual when it comes.
I am very much the same way.
Oh yeah.
Well, I guess for my take on the game, and I guess to back up just one quick step, to those listening who haven't had a chance to like Google it real quick, it's a scary, a sort of horror adventure game. It has. I think I heard people refer to it as like action adventure. It's not action. It just side scrolls a little bit. It just side scrolls like a little bit as you're walking. The room will just move a little. Like it's, for an adventure game, yeah, the backgrounds scroll. So there you go. But it's not like by any means anything but an adventure game. It's pixel art. It's horror. It was released in like 2018-ish. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Bloody... Look it up. I know I just said I'm going to explain it so you don't have to, but just I need you to get all the way off my back about what this game's about. It's fine. My opinion on it is
Sorry, I just want to say it is good to establish, just so people know where we're coming from, though. Horror game, pixel art, 2D, side-scrolling adventure game, survival horror. Yeah, all right. I think that covers all the bases. Yeah.
For me, there's just not enough horror adventure games, like in general. I think there was like a decent amount of them from like 2000 through 2012. There's a bunch of horrible looking 3D ones, and I just don't rate them. I can't do it. It's just not palatable to me the way they look. They're horrendous. So, and I'm sure there's some actual good games in there. I just, if it looks that bad to me, like I can't do it. There's a reason I haven't played Grim Fandango yet. Not calling that a horror game, but that's a 3D game that's probably amazing, and I just won't play it because it's just ugh. But I will eventually, I promise. But anyway, my point is that the look of it aesthetically is just really nice. It's got a lot of glowing pixels, like a lot of accentuation on the lighting of the game, which I really like. And if you are driving and you can't see screenshots or you haven't looked it up yet, you can kind of think of like The Last Door. Or you can think, even Dark Side Detective, they were really good with illumination, I guess you could say. Just the few lights in the game really set off this glow and give this ambiance. And, it just has this really cool kind of magical look to it. So basically for me, it was the art style and just the fact that it was horror. And I'm a bit of a coward when it comes to scary things, so it did make me jump at least twice. Like I was pretty on edge a couple of times, so that says something for the submersion of it. So yeah, I mean, I think it kind of hit the mark for I don't know where my expectations were. They were somewhat high, I would say, and it definitely met them. Like I felt, I was frightened a few times. There were issues with the writing that I can get into later, but I'll just say that there was a disconnect maybe between the person who wrote the plot and story of the game and the person who wrote the dialogue. Because there's issues with the dialogue. It did manage to scare me, and the story itself I thought was really cool. They did fail to tighten it up. As you kind of alluded to, the ending is a little disappointing. They ask a lot of questions. They don't answer a lot of them. That might have been the point. I'm not quite sure, because the kind of the idea is like everyone around you has gone mad, and you're supposed to not really tell what's reality and what's not. But I kind of, by the end of it, I did kind of want to know what was all along reality and what wasn't, and you don't really get a solid answer on that. So that was a little disappointing. But the fact that like the story, the whole world just kind of dissolves and disintegrates as it goes on. It just delves deeper and deeper into utter madness. And you're just like, God, what is real? What's not? There's like these weird flashpoints where you're in like the store and it flashes from like blood and dead bodies everywhere to not. And you're just like, which one is, which of these two am I living in right now? So I really liked how disorienting the whole thing was. I thought that was really cool. And then the last thing I'll say before I pass the bloody mic is the antagonists in the game weren't like zombies or something hard to believe. It was people that just lost their minds, like to the point where they were dangerous. And there was something just cool about that. It was kind of believable. Like maybe this could happen, or, you know, just the average person, how dangerous they can become if their minds are broken to the point of madness. So anyway, that's all my positives.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was like, who's insane and what level of insanity are you at, right? What are you experiencing? What are they experiencing that only they can see? What is it you can see? Like, there's that part where you have to kick the table with the head on it. And, like, this other guy's got to turn around a bunch of times, but you got to, like, kick the table at the right time. But it was so weird. And I never fully understood what, like, where they were going with that scene. But it was unique. I'll tell you that. It was definitely madness.
Yeah.
As you've already kind of pointed out, and as I've already admitted to you guys, I gave up pretty early on. So I probably missed out some really good moments that probably would have pushed the needle a little further to the right. But I just couldn't do it. I love pixel art when it's done well and done right and done at the right time. There's no art style that I'm particularly against in theory. So although I like pixel art, I just didn't find it used very well here. You know, like, I liked it in Darkside Detective. I like it in Chinatown Detective Agency. They're beautiful pixel art, like, thoroughly. And they really bring me into the world, and I really enjoy it. And I think it's really just breathtaking art. And this one took me out of the experience because, I'm not saying that a pixel art horror game cannot immerse me, but this one just didn't. And I think a lot of it comes down to, like, the background art was really good, but the character art was really kind of cartoonish or kind of wannabe throwback SNES kind of style. And I really didn't think that worked for the tone that they really should have been trying to set.
Well, and you bring up that point, and it was put out on consoles as well. So it really seemed like the kind of game that was designed to be almost in the spirit of Nintendo with the heart of an adventure or a point and click behind it.
And I would get that if they weren't trying to be scary. It's like, I'm not saying it would be bad. In fact, I would really like to see a survival horror game with Mario 2 characters. But it probably wouldn't be that scary, right? So this one really banks on trying to be scary and unnerving and creepy. And just the fact that it almost looked like it could have been Mario 2 just didn't do it for me.
So like it's like the purple ketchup of computer games.
Kind of. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to put words into the dev's mouth. I don't want to be needlessly negative if I can help it. But there's just... I like pixel art, but sometimes I see some pixel art and it just strikes me in the same way that hipsters strike me, where it's just sort of like, they want to look like lumberjacks, not because they are, but because that's suddenly cool. And I see some of these games are sort of like, we're doing pixel art, not because we have to, but because we think it's cool. And this one just felt, I don't want to put intention into their mouths, but this one just really felt like, ooh, pixel art's cool, so we're going to do pixel art because we want to be cool, and pixel art is cool, so here's pixel art because we're cool. And it just didn't work. It just, like, the character art just looked so forced into simplicity. I can't really put my finger on it. I know I'm probably not explaining this very well. If you send me hate mail, I deserve it because I'm not really expressing myself properly. But I can't look at the graphics and say, yeah, this is the tone that they should be going for.
Well, there is the point that I think you made just before we got on air, Paul, about the outlines around the characters, because I mean, I kind of get it, because when you go to interact with a character, they're highlighted by a yellow outline. And since they're moving characters, it would be difficult to create an outline when there isn't one. around each character. But some of the items in the background that are highlighted to show that you can interact with them don't have an outline around them. So there is a little bit of an inconsistency with the sprites.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Anna, because Rick, to what you were saying, like, I completely agree and completely disagree at the same time. So to break that down, I'll say that the background art is phenomenal, and it was just really well done in pixel art, and I feel like it should have been pixel art. But
I agree
again,
with
just
that
based on
part.
the background.
I agree with that part.
Okay, so we're on the same page there, and the background for me was the majority of the atmosphere, so that's why it didn't take me out of it, let's say. But I could also understand being taken out of it based on the character art, since you are the character and they move, and that's kind of a to each their own thing. So I totally respect that. And then Anna, to what you were saying, the character art's weird, right? Because it does have that black outline around them, and to me that makes it look more like I don't know, they look more like sprites than they do like characters. They just look very, like, placed on top of it. And then, I don't know, do their knees do that weird Mario Nintendo bouncy thing at certain points? I feel like they do.
To me, it kind of seems like a novice attempt at putting these elements together. Like, they started making it and they kind of figured out what worked. And instead of looking for a specific style with the characters, maybe that's just something that was easier as far as coding went. But I could just be, making that up entirely.
Well, let me put it this way. I don't know if you've ever played Detective D, but I know you've played Chinatown Detective Agency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If they did that, it would have been 100% better. Mm-hmm. Like, that particular style of character art, it would have been perfect. Like, I would have been in. So I'm not criticizing their use of pixel art. I'm just saying that they really did not go for the right visual tone of the characters.
It is a little bit of a cacophony, I guess you could say, of graphic imaging, because you have that cutesy, simple style. I mean, the more you talk, the more I can see it, that it's supposed to be really cute and really sweet, but then you've got this person and his blood is splattered everywhere, but it's like, it's kind of cute at the same time, so it's like dissonant, almost.
Not even cute in the right way. Like, I love Happy Tree Friends. And,
right. Yeah.
Where the whole joke is that, hey, look how cute these things are before we horribly murder them. But it didn't even do that. Like, you could tell that wasn't the purpose, right? You could tell that they were trying to be this survival horror adventure game. Great. I like those things. And it just, again, like I said, I don't want to be needlessly negative, because I admit that they, you said this is like a first game or something, right? So, good job. Really good job. And the story, I can't say too much about the story, but the little things that you've described sound like really cool moments, so that's something. But again, like, it just, like I said, all I'm saying is that I didn't enjoy it for these reasons, and a lot of it really comes down to the visual tone not being where I think it should have been. What I think it should have been. If anyone, you guys are cool with it, so that's cool. I'm not saying you're wrong. If anything, I'm wrong, but I didn't realize until you told me shortly after I played what I did, Paul, that English was not their first language or something, or it was like translated from another language, or something to do with it not really being natively English.
Correct. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case, and after saying that, I really hope it's the case, because that would be a messed up insult if it's not. But I'm positive enough to not have you edit that out. That they're not native English speakers.
Yeah, there's really that kind of. It doesn't really give you that aha. That's what is going on moment. Like, I found I was waiting for that moment where, and maybe that was due to the language barrier, but it was like that moment where you're like, that's it. And you kind of got some idea of what was happening, but then when it ended, you still didn't fully have a formed idea of what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I thought the same thing. Like, do they think that they explained it, or or was the point to not explain it? If they thought they explained it, but they didn't, because there was just a weird lack of clarity, maybe because of language or communication barriers, or maybe they meant it to not be fully explained, which is a thing, right? There's a lot of movies and different mediums where the point is to come up with your own ideas and to have a conversation about it, I guess you could say. But it felt even kind of muddy for that. Like there's not a whole lot of room to go back and forth even between the three of us of like, so what do you think happened? Because they didn't really give us the tools to have that conversation.
Yeah, and this one, I mean, whatever direction it was leading you in, it definitely led you there. I mean, when you were having a conversation, it was like you were only interacting by clicking, but you didn't actually choose what you were saying or when. It just the conversation flowed, essentially.
Well, you know what it could be? Because I noticed this a bit of a trend in a lot of modern games where it probably, they probably didn't outright explain the story, but they probably put in like a whole bunch of clues as to what it would be so that people can like do video essays about the theories of what's going on and stuff like that. So there's probably like, like Five Nights at Freddy's did it where there really wasn't a story to talk about in terms of the actual gameplay, but there are little clues here and there that sort of allude to the bigger picture. And there's things like Doki Doki Literature Club, which does tell you like a full, complete story. But if you look up online, you can find out all this information that was sort of like concealed for the player to figure out on their own, which points out to like some bigger thing going on. And I get the feeling that if I give them the credit, I get the feeling maybe they were going to try this. I don't know if maybe there's videos out there where it's like, here's the story behind it as per all these clues that they left in for us to figure out. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would have hoped. I'm kind of glad that I didn't finish it now, if that's generally how it ends, is sort of unexplained, because I think the one thing that almost kept me going was thinking that, hey, there will be a really cool story behind this.
I mean, there kind of is. Like, obviously, they're doing experiments on people. I mean, I don't know if it has like a military background on it or if it's just specifically through like science itself, but
I guess the way I should say it more clearly is that if there's no payoff to the story.
Yeah, I did feel I wanted to feel a little different. I did, like I say, I did feel that little bit let down at the end. So.
Yeah, I think one of the bigger, the best and worst part about it was the story, I guess you could say, because I loved how I loved the madness of it all and how you as a character are seeing, former colleagues and friends of yours whose minds have just broken and they become dangerous and they become threats, and then your reality in a visual sense, and I guess perspectively speaking, like mental as well to you as the player, they flicker back and forth in these flashes of almost madness. And again, there's a scene in the convenience store where everyone's dead and you stop and wonder, like, did I just do that? Like, am I losing it? And that was the story at its best, because it's like, wow, like I'm in control of this character, and the game, the writers, to their credit, have done such a good job that I can't tell if that's me or not. So that's considering that's what they were going for, that was great, because I was really struggling to figure out if I myself was kind of going crazy, because I swear that my character was the hero of the story, because there's clues in the game where you get a message from your mate saying, you can save us, it's not too late, you can save us. So the whole game you're like, okay, my mission here is to save everybody. But then you have all these weird, takes on reality where you're like, am I the one doing it, or am I the one saving it, or a little bit of both? And yeah, the ending doesn't tell. I don't know if it tells you. I think the ending tells you that you're the hero and that you prevented something. But then out of your control, it's gonna actually just get worse anyway. I don't know. Yeah, I kind of want to open it up to the floor, listener-wise, for those who have played it through, to give their takes on it. And maybe, for that being said, maybe they're accomplishing what they set out to, if we can have a conversation about it, because it is, the more we kind of pick it apart, the more interesting it seems to become as far as what they were going for. But anyway, I guess the main idea of what I'm saying, and perhaps what you're saying too, Anna, is it seems like a little bit of a missed opportunity at the end there.
Like maybe they needed to add another 10 minutes on to the end of the game.
Yeah.
Maybe I was so intrigued by the story in the emails that I wanted to hear a little bit more about it. I mean, maybe I was just disappointed because it ended so quickly, because typically games that I play are at least 15 to 20 hours. So But at the same time, it was nice having a game that was short because it is, I have to say, probably the only game I've completed this year.
You mentioned convenience store a little bit earlier, and that reminded me of another thing that really got me. First impressions are very important. So I know a lot of my criticisms are very shallow, or at least they come across that way. But I will kind of stand behind that, even if it is a little bit shallow, there are some pretty important points in terms of immersion through graphics and dialogue. And there's this one, like the first scene of the game, you walk down the street, you go into a convenience store or a shopping market or whatever it was. And you walk in there, there's like a couple of other customers in the store. And there's like one guy who's like kind of standing next to the register. And then you walk up to the cashier and you have like a conversation about like your personal life. And then it's just like one of the dialogue options is like, hey, what's with that guy over there? I'm like, what's with the guy over there? Like, well, why is that a dialogue option? Like, when's the last time you walk into a store and like go up to like the cashier and be like, hey, what's with that guy over there? Right?
Maybe if he has like one eye and he's tossing a knife. Yeah. Be like, hey, what's with that guy over there?
Then I definitely wouldn't ask about him.
You'd be like, I just want to get the hell out of here now.
So, and again, it's those little things. And you said, Paul, that, there's something with the language there. We're at least 1 degree separated from what they're actually like trying to say. And, but it was too much for me, like between the visual clash with the tone and then just like this writing that was just so like, it just kept taking me out far more than bringing me in. And I just couldn't get into it. And like, I played it for like 2 hours. And it felt like I played it for 12. Like, it was just it was a chore for me. I just didn't enjoy it. And I'm glad other people do. Mm-hmm. And I really want people to, and I really want this to be successful, but I hope that they'll also maybe learn, like, that there were a few things that they could work on. I probably could have been really involved in it if they did a more, like a more serious visual tone and better translation of the text. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a tale of two tones, because there's the there's like the backgrounds, the backgrounds and the atmosphere and everything is wonderful, whereas the character parts are not. Mm-hmm. And then the story as a whole and the plot and everything is wondrous and just really, really cool. Leaves plenty to the imagination. It's just a cool idea in general, the decay of everything around you. But then the dialogue is not great at all. Mm-hmm. So it's, half of the story is great and half of it's not, and the same with the art. For me, obviously, it was a 60-40 in the positive direction, having liked it, but I could see that pendulum swinging pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like talking to the both of you, I'm not convinced that I like it any more or less, but I certainly am swayed to different points on either side here. I'm pretty easy on this one, but as overall, beautiful game. I liked the 2D. I loved the pixel art. And those backgrounds were super cool. There was a lot to look at in the backgrounds. There was some stuff I wanted to be able to interact with and I couldn't. Of course, missing the ability to look at things, it's kind of, you get what you can get, so.
Yeah, it was one of the most gorgeous games I've seen. Again, referring to atmosphere and background art, just the way they handled fire and lighting, and there's a certain point where there's just like this glowing green toxicity all around the room, and it's got the perfect ring of lime glowing green everywhere, or the fires outside. It's extraordinary pixel art. It is better than I've seen in a lot of games, and especially a lot of games recently really go for that kind of glowing look, and they just absolutely nailed that. I would just have wished that they switched the art of the characters. I hate to say it, I really do, but I wish that they made the other parts of the game more traditional. I know
Yeah.
that's like forcing things into a box, and we all want, you know, I think we'd like to come across like we don't just want things the way they used to be. I think I'm that way, but in this case, I just want it to be more like it used to be. Like there's just this weird NES vibe to the characters, and
Yep.
I would say probably even keep the background static as well. Like if they just got rid of the weird Nintendo vibe that the characters have, that spritey look with the bouncing knees, and you know, you could leave or take the scrolling backgrounds. It really doesn't have much effect on me opinion wise at all. But if they just, yeah, again, I hate to say it, if they just made it a little more traditional in the character sense, I think that would have helped a lot. And then the whoever wrote the dialogue, I put money that it wasn't the same person that wrote the story.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think a part of the characters looking towards Nintendo goes back again to the fact that I'm pretty sure these are Nintendo gamers that kind of also like adventure games. Now, I'm totally just shooting off the hip, though, but it seems like they would have grown up playing Nintendo, and they were really marketing towards Nintendo more than anything, and the PC just kind of had to be there because of the adventure element, but it wasn't really what they were considering as far as an audience goes, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point, because I didn't realize at the time that it had a PlayStation and Switch port and everything. It's playing it on the PC. Yeah, a lot of my critiques in that regard could probably be thrown out the window if you play it on a console, because it would feel more at home.
But you know what? It's also how much that can really be an excuse. Like, already on Super Nintendo, they had Clock Tower, which was like fantastically horrific. Like, that was a scary game with awesome Super Nintendo pixel art. And maybe they don't have quite the technology to do like the like I said, the atmosphere and effects that this game had. But if they just went like with a more serious tone, rather, like I said, I felt like it was Mario 2 playing it, right?
It almost seems like the guy who wrote the story designed the backgrounds, and the guy who wrote the dialogue designed the characters.
Oh, I totally get what you mean. Yeah.
You know, and I want a game from the background plot guy, because that was awesome.
It was a 2-person team. Can you imagine? It's like, hey, you do this part of the game, I'll do this part of the game. Oh.
Yeah, they did not share notes at all, because it's weird. It totally suffers from that Marvel trope where they ruin any scene that has potential for emotional depth by making a cheap quip immediately afterwards, and it just, and to be honest, I don't really mind that in Marvel films. It's already about superheroes. It's already ridiculous. Why not? But in this game, it did stand out a little bit, where it's like, you know, you just found your dead friend, like, and you're gonna make like a quip about it. Like, it was a little weird. But all that being said, I mean, to those who haven't played it, like, you know, definitely, obviously, to form your own opinion, play it. But our job is to, you know, just talk about it for a pretty good amount of time, even if it's, you know, 40-minute podcast or whatever. But so we're obviously going to get well into it and come up with everything we liked and didn't like and break it all down and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, you know, depending on where your expectations are, if you're expecting a good looking game that is definitely creepy, it may or may not make you jump once or twice. Overall, you'll feel like it's a horror game. It's definitely, at no point does it feel, I think, ridiculous. Like it'll probably keep you on edge at certain points, and it looks pretty. So I think you'd be satisfied if you're just like, hey, as long as this has got a creepy vibe and it looks good and the story's good enough, I genuinely think you'd have a good time with it.
Yeah, and, you know, it'll be very rare occasions I would ever suggest people not play a game, even if I don't like it. So I do think people should play this game. I'm not going to try to convince anyone not to, and I'm sorry if I do. That's why I'm really trying to make it very clear that this is just my personal tastes and reactions, and it's totally not based on any objective metric. It's they pulled off what they wanted to do pretty well, as far as I could tell. I didn't get deep enough into it to analyze exactly what they may or may not have been going for, but, you know, as far as a pretty polished game, other than the dialogue, it was good. And it just didn't appeal to what I wanted it to be, and that is more me than the game, but I just didn't enjoy it. 2 out of 3 CGG hosts enjoyed it, and I think that's a really reasonable score. 66%, or 67%, whatever it is. I think that's a good score for the game to have.
Yeah, go out and play it. Put on some headphones. I think it's a game that relies a little bit on the ambiance. So, immerse yourself in it a little bit. Understand it is what it is, and that there's a lot of fun to be had in the gory scenes. There's profanity, there's violence. You can't go wrong.
Tell us what you think, because again, like I said, we're take it for what it is, because the two people who actually played it the entire way through really liked it, or at least liked it. And again, like I said, I had personal hang-ups that I just couldn't even get very far into it. So don't listen to me. But let us know what you think. If you have a really good thing to say about it, we might even read it on the show, teach us a thing or two, because we're limited and quite often not that intelligent. So, let us know what we're supposed to think.
Help us out, guys. Help us out. We need it.
You can reach us by email, mail@classicgamersguild.com. We are on Facebook. We have both a page and a group. Follow the page for updates. Follow the group for discussions. We're on Twitter at the CG Guild. We're on Instagram at CGG Podcast. And are we on anything else? We're on Patreon. If you want to support the show, not that we gave you much reason to this time, but some people think it's worth supporting. Toss a coin to us. Look up Classic Gamers Guild on Patreon. Thank you to all of you who support the show, each and every one of you, but especially those of you in this extra special thanks tier, namely Jay Holmes and Mark Fillion. And I think that's about it out of me. Any final words?
Yeah, buddy, don't do I was going to make it so I didn't have an ending to it.
Leave it as unsatisfying as the end of the game. I see. Very nice.
This was not our finest moment.